On Saturday the 26th of October 1964, Ron Fisher hopped on the bus to nearby Woodvale to see, for the first time in the flesh, the dragsters he had read about in Hot Rod magazine. Like the thousands of other curious spectators there, his mind was well and truly blown, and he returned the following year and then made regular visits to Santapod when it opened in 1966. And what follows is the results of the pictures and cine film he took up to 1968. Welcome to Time Travel 2. In 1958, arrangements were made to bring over Calvin Rice and his championship-winning fuel dragster to run at the Brighton Speed Trials. But unfortunately, the plans fell through, and it wasn't until 1963 that the first American dragsters ran on British soil. The Moon Eyes Chevy gas dragster was flown over for a series of match races against Sidney Allard's Chrysler dragster. And at the last moment, Bicky Thompson decided to bring over his 7-litre nitro-burning Ford-powered dragster called the Harvey Aluminium Special, and he ran a best of 8.84 at 178 miles an hour at Debden, while Dante Deuce in Moon Eyes ran a 9.48 166 miles an hour at Silverstone. The staggering performances put down by the American dragsters set British motorsports buzzing, and Sidney Allard and the British Drag Racing Association set about organising an international drag festival that would bring over America's top names to Britain. In September 1964, 6 one-day meetings were held. Starting and finishing at Blackbush, the drag festivals visited Chelveston, Church Fenton, Kemble and RAF Woodvale at Southport, where these pictures were taken. K.S. Pittman had his Willis at Woodvale, but never made a run due to a sheared axle on the line. George Montgomery ran a best of 10.56 at 139 miles an hour. Don Garlitz and Tommy Ivo had brought over their AA fuelers, but it was decided to run singly due to a 3.5-inch bump at the top end of the strip. On his last run of the day, Garlitz stood on the loud pedal and blasted the Wins Jammer out the chute, looking anything but stable as he rode the bump without backing off and recorded top time of the festival, an 8.09 at 195 miles an hour. Tommy Ivo in the Valvoline Special ran a best of 8.40 at 177 miles an hour. This is the blown gas Chevy gas dragster of Bob Keith called Dos Palmas, and it ran several low 9-second runs at 165 miles an hour. Alan Allard was driving his dad's Allard Chrysler dragster, and he ran a best time of 10.28. This is the Porsche-powered dragster of Doug Church and the one American dragster that stood a chance of being beaten by a British machine. And in this race, Alan Allard does just that, now driving the blown 1500 Ford Dragon to an 11.11 at 127 to Doug's 11.45. Doug Church again against the Dodge Boys AFX of Dave Strickler, which ran a best of 11.70. The other AFX car there was the 427 Mercury Comet of Ronnie Sox, running 11.74. The 2 Dragster Developments car come out for a match-up. This is the supercharged straight 8 Buick powered dragster of Alan Herridge. And this is the Austin A90 powered dragster of John Harrison. Leon Moss comes out for a run against the Allard Dragon with his pre-war twin overhead cam 1.5 litre Shorrock supercharged Riley engine dragster. That's Bruce Ropner in his Cobra against the XK120 of Dave Cottingham. This is the Slingshot drag bike built by Clive Way using a blown VW engine. It ran 11.14. 1965 and the second International Drag Festival. This time, instead of a selection of vehicles, 8 AA fuelers were brought over. The first weekend at Blackbush was wet, but the following Sunday at Woodvale the sun came out. This is Bob Keith's car from Santa Clara, California, now running top fuel. It had a Fuller chassis and Chrysler engine. Tony Nancy from Sherman Oaks, California, was also now running in top fuel in his rebuilt 22 Junior. This is the same car that he brought to the 64 drag festivals, running a gas Plymouth engine where the car was almost written off in a crash at Chelveston whilst being driven by Dante Deuce. Buddy Cortines from San Antonio, Texas, brought his Garlitz-built car Troublemaker, running Chrysler power. The driver of the new Moonshot dragster was involved in a road accident when leaving the party at Sidney Allard's house after the Blackbush meet the previous weekend, and he was unable to drive, so Ben Griffin, who had never driven a dragster before, was put in the car. This is Bob Keith's Dos Palmas dragster, now owned by a British team and being driven at this meeting by Norman Barclay. The new Allard Chrysler car had a 150-inch stainless steel frame and used the blown 354 out of the old car with direct drive and Olds axle. Derek Metcalf's Triumph TR2 engine dragster used a Volkswagen gearbox mounted upside down and reversed. He'd also just fitted a new front axle and nose cone. This is the X-Works Allard Dragon, now owned by Chris Patterson, who'd won it in a competition run by British Drag Racing magazine. The other Allard Dragon, seen here on the left, was that of Jerry Boughton, and on the right, using a new Mark II Dragon chassis, was that of Colin Glass, who fitted a 2-litre Bristol engine. The new Dragon chassis was debuted at the 1965 racing car show. That's the Manx drag bike of Eamon Hurley. And another look at the amazing Dragway Special slingshot drag bike, which got beaten in the first round by Alf Hagen. The Goodyear mechanics struggled for long periods to fit slicks to competitors' wheels. During the morning, all the fuel dragsters put in a practice run. Ben Griffin made a good start in Moonshot, but switched lanes at half track so didn't get a time. Gary Cassidy from Burbank, California, ran at 8.74, 170 miles an hour in his Chevy engine fueler, sponsored by Anson Automotive Engineering. He had a race car specialities frame and was the first Chevy engine fueler to run 200 miles an hour in America. Chuck Griffith was the manager of Pomona Drag Strip in California, and he drove Starlight 3 to a 12.68, 146 after putting a wheel stand halfway down the strip. The car had a Fuller chassis and was sponsored by Pomona Valley Timing Association and Schieffer Manufacturing Company. This is the Owen Hicks and Lingard team's Olds rocket-engined 1935 Austin Cabriolet, running a Jag gearbox and axle, fitted with Inglewood slicks and driven by Paul Hicks. Built in 11 weekends, it was a bit rough and didn't impress the scrutineer, who reluctantly allowed it to run, but it never made eliminations, running at 18.18 at 68 miles an hour in practice before braking. George Wells was the official starter for both of the drag festivals. First round of Top Fuel, and Chuck Griffith beats Nick Colbert with an 8.44, 185 to Nick's 9.05, 130. Then Danny Ongaius in the Mangler beats Bob Keith with an excellent 7.91 at 200 miles an hour, Britain's first 200 mile an hour run, as Bob Keith rolled the lights and ran a 15.03. Cassidy beats Ben Griffith with an 11.42, 166 to a 12.98, 183, as both cars made false starts. And in the other first round, Buddy Courtines, after seeing Ongaius' quick run, stood on the loud pedal to record a blistering 7.83 at 200 miles an hour to blow away Nancy. Tony Dencham in the Warden gets the jump on Les Turner with a winning 12.09 at 114. This is Harold Ball in Strip Duster, beating the Triumph Buckler cart with a 16.53 at 79 miles an hour. Semi-final of Top Fuel, and Courtines beats Cassidy with a 7.86, 192 to Cassidy's 8.57, 173. In the other semi-final, Ongaius blows his clutch, but still wins with a 7.90, 200 miles an hour to Griffith's 8.11, 198. This caused panic in the Mangler pits as everyone rushed round to repair the damaged clutch. Dusk came, and with the RAC steward anxiously looking at his watch, out came the two cars for the final. Ongaius exploded his blower on the line as Courtines went on to record a fantastic 7.74 at 201 miles an hour, a time that would take 5 years to be bettered on British soil. In 1966, Poddington Airfield became Centre Pod Raceway, and on Easter Monday, the British Drag Racing Association held their first drag race meeting there. After a week of sunshine, on Easter Monday, it poured with rain. Despite this, 60 entries turned up, including 15 dragsters. Jerry Boughton had sold his white Allard Dragon to Pete Atkins, who ran Watford Motor Accessories. He'd repainted it and renamed it Dragonfly. Ken Cooper was there with his bazooka rail, powered by a 48 Mercury flathead, bored and stroked to 257 cubic inches. He had an Iski cam, Edelbrook heads, 3 Holly carbs on a Navro manifold, running on alcohol. Gearbox was 39 Mercury, and rear axle 40 Ford. Les Turner was there with his Turner Ford dragster. Harold Ball had brought along Strip Duster, powered by an 850 BMC A-Series. Despite the wet track, all the dragsters ran. This is Colin Glass in his Allard framed Bristol rail. The Owen Hicks and Lingard crew were at it again, this time with Clive Lingard's 317 Lincoln powered dragster called Purple Heart. They had a Ford Pilot gearbox, Cadillac rear axle and chrome tube front axle on a Model Y spring. They spent the day putting out carb fires due to an over-retarded ignition, and when they did get it going on a run, the gearbox broke. This car ended its day when on display at a local disco, and the disco caught fire. Ratcatcher was jag-powered, had a homemade body, and was run by Colin Ketley. Whitsun 1966, and this time the sun shone and there was no rain. A lot of new Altereds turned up at this meeting. Colin Ketley was back out in Ratcatcher, but was having a few gearbox problems. This is the Model Y Altered of Colin Dunster, called Juggernaut, and it was fitted with a Jag engine and transmission. Wild Thing was the first of many jag-powered pops to appear at Santa Pod. Run by the Rat Fink drag team, Brian Gibson and Bob Venison, it was painted metallic royal purple and had perspex windows. Mark Stratton debuted his 1934 BSA Scout bodied altered, powered by a 265 Chevy. It ran 15s, and as the season progressed, they made the car lighter by removing the bonnet, wings, running boards, etc., but at the same time, the engine started running sicker and sicker, so the times remained the same. John Wright had already removed most of the bodywork on his Austin pickup bodied altered. Powered by a Jag engine, it had a Rolls-Royce grille and was originally built as a street rod. Fast suits were not necessary in 1966. Alan Allard brought out the 220 brake horsepower, Shorrocks blown Cortina powered Dragoon Anglia, but fuel starvation problems prevented any fast times at this meeting. There's a total of 6 dragsters in this picture. Starting from the left, we have the Allard Bristol of Colin Glass, Pete Atkins Dragonfly, Harold Ball's Strip Duster, Tony Gain and Dennis Priddle's 500cc Rudd engine machine, Derek Metcalf's Wombat, and Rex Heatley's Vincent powered dragster. Double overhead cam Jaguar cylinder head, minus the fore and aft combustion chambers and valve gear, have been grafted onto the TR2 power unit of Derek Metcalf's dragster. 4 stub exhausts exited the gases, and induction was now taken care of by 4 SU carbs. Ken Bunce's dragster was called Baron's Barrow and powered by a 2.4 Jag. The new Hound Dog 3 dragster had a 154-inch stainless steel frame. Bodywork was similar to Tony Nancy's 22 Junior, and it was powered by a blown 55 Cadillac motor. Harold Ball was experimenting with a little nitro in Strip Duster, and he managed to get the front off the ground on each gear change. Weekend Warrior was the new car of Alan Blount, powered by a 241 cubic inch red Ram Dodge Hemi, fitted with 3 Buick straight 8 2-barrel carbs on a homemade manifold. Those good looking exhausts were aerial motorcycle pipes, which were available left and right hand. Les Turner had his immaculate blown Ford dragster back out, the stove enamelled black engine fitted out with polished alloy components sparkling in the sunshine. Later in the year, he broke several world records at the annual Alvington Records meet. Also breaking records at Alvington was Gerald Tyack and his Shelby Cobra. He was quite a character and would arrive at Santa Pod wearing a white shirt, tie, blazer, handlebar moustache and a flat cap. At the Alvington meet, he would stand by his car, calmly puffing away at his pipe, and when called out, would don his helmet, bring the Cobra over to the line, whereupon the door would open, an arm would appear, and the pipe would be knocked out on the door sill. Bang would go the door, roar would go the engine, and Mr. Tyack was away. This is the metallic green Olds-powered Model A of Martin Hill. And this is a street rod visitor spotted in the car park. June 1966, and once again American dragsters came over to England. Organised by the British Hot Rod Association and promoted by Bob George, the US Masters drag racing team consisted of 2 dragsters, an Anglia Gasser, 1 Dodge Charger and a Chevy powered bike. Bud Barnes was driving Ultrasonic, a 671 GMC blown Chrysler AA Fueler. It had a Logie frame, American mags and Goodyear slicks, and ran a best of 8:57. Jill Mudrack brought over the Runt, a T-body dragster known as a modified roadster, again running GMC blown Chrysler on fuel, fitted with Hellebrands and Blue Streak slicks. It ran a best of 9:74 and was having trouble keeping the front end on the ground, a problem later solved by fitting 2 large pieces of 1-inch thick boilerplate to the front axle. Larry Arnold was driving the Lawman Anglia, running a best of 10.85. It had a Hillborn injected 327 Chevy, 3-speed box and Hurst shifter. Chrome steel imitation mags had M&H rubber. Alex Strand's Dodge Charger was one of only 12 made. Fitted with Craigar mags and cheetah slicks, it ran a best of 13.25 and had a series of match races with various British cars, including the Cobra of Jerry Tyack. In a best of 3, Jerry won 2-1 and then announced it to be a best of 5. On the 4th round, the Cobra shot up the strip, leaving the Charger unmoved on the line. Noticing he was on his own, Gerald stopped and reversed back from the 8th mile mark to see what had happened. Apparently the Dodge had slipped out of drive. They staged again and the Charger took the win, making it 2 each, but damaged the transmission with no chance of a decider. This is the Michigan Madman E.J. Potter with his Chevy-powered bike. The 327 was Hillborn injected and it ran a best of 10.62. The bike was tow-started up the strip by a rope attached to a special chuck bracket on the front fork damper. When it fired, Potter leaned forward, released the rope and returned to the line. He then raised the rear wheel 2 inches off the ground using a lever with 2 prongs, engaged the clutch, revved the motor and then rocked the bike off the stand, sending him up the strip, engulfed in rubber smoke and throwing back large rubber particles, looking very much like churned up asphalt, which made strip owner John Bennett's face fall until he realised what they were. August 1966 saw the first annual British Drag Racing Championships. Hound Dog comes out against Alan Heritage's Pulsation Dragster. Hound Dog was running without the usual front-mounted blower and injection, and for this meeting had 4 SUs fitted on ram stacks as a temporary measure. Pete Atkins was back out in Dragonfly. Another new Jag-powered pop debuted at this meeting, run by Jeff Barrett, Roger Horn and Mike Cornelius. It was called Liquidator. Roof was chopped 3 inches and the front end was raised 4 inches by a spacer block on the front spring. Unfortunately, it didn't pass scrutineering, as Captain Tom Howes was not impressed by a complete lack of firewall. Needless to say, this was rectified by the next meeting, and it went on to run some excellent match races with Wild Thing. This is the 36 Ford Street rod of John Ford. It had motorcycle front wings and modified Pilot rear wings. Headlights were mounted on cut-down motorcycle handlebars. Alan Herridge in his Cadillac engine Pulsation and Brian Whitty in his overhead valve Mercury engine Norwesterner dragster. After Mickey Thompson left the Harvey Aluminium Special behind in 1963, it was brought back to life by Abaca Engineering and renamed the Golden Hind. Driven by Tony Densham, it was powered by a 7-litre Ford with GMC blower and Hilborn vertical injectors. After initial test runs, it was decided to lengthen the wheelbase to improve stability, and fiberglass repairs began working on a full-length body for the car with an upset swept tail to house the drag chute. The Lawman Dodge had been bought by Tony Wymiss, who had removed the lettering so we could use it on the street as well as on the strip. That's the 265 Chevy in Mark Stratton's much lightened BSA Scout Altered. John watched her make some smoke in his Chevy. (1967), and more new and updated cars appeared at Santa Pod. Ken Cooper had made a new 122-inch chassis for his dragster, now named Bazooka 2. It had an Alan Herridge torsion bar front suspension. Engine, gearbox, axles and wheels were all off the old car. Weekend Warrior now had homemade injection, using a mini oil pump as the injector pump, and injector nozzles were mini brake nipples. Disturbance was another pop jag and was run by Roy Denard and Brian Sutton. Brian Sutton was also responsible for all the cinefilm and slides in Time Travel 1. Mick Wheeler debuted this imp-powered dragster called Scorpion. He'd previously been one of the 3 members of the now-sold Juggernaut Model Y team. The other 2 members now ran Stagecoach, an Austin 7 ruby-bodied altered, running 3.4 jag with E-type head and triple carbs. Megalomania was the new 396 Chevy-powered funny car of Keith Sowes. Body was built by Fiberglass Repairs and loosely resembled an MGB with an E-type front end. Gerald Tyack now had a Porsche, but it was nowhere as quick as his 12-second Cobra. By the end of 1966, there wasn't much left of Mark Stratton's BSA Scout, so they built a new chassis to mount the BSA cab and fitted a wooden pickup bed. The car was called Hustler. Joining the Hustler team was Dave Riswick in his 57 Chevy. Ron Fisher started work on a combination altered using a Ford Pop chassis, mini body and Riley engine, but it never reached the drag strip. The August Bank Holiday Championships meeting saw the first full passes by commuter, running a best of 9-1 at 155 miles an hour before the valve timing slipped. The standard dowel holding the cam drive sprocket had sheared and was replaced by a modified piece before the next meeting. Question: what do you call a mini pickup with a 392 Hemi in the back? Colin Ketley's latest creation made its debut, painted candy apple green and gold metal flake by Bo Sandberg in Sweden. It ran with a Jag gearbox and rear axle, and the engine was fitted with a single carb, later replaced by fuel injection. Megalomania was running injection for the first time, the tall ram stacks giving a most purposeful look. Motivation was the new junior fueler of Alan Herridge. The 283 Chevy had been brought out to 301, ran a Shed Herbert cam, Hillborn injection, Vertix magneto and 50% nitro. They were running direct drive for the first time, and initially the car kept bogging off the line, running no better than 20 seconds. This is the 2.5 litre Daimler Hemi in Opus 1. Jeff Jago was running his T, powered by a triple SU'd Zodiac motor. It had Ford console front wheels and reversed Chevy rear wheels, and was painted apple green metal flake. Stagecoach was beginning to run well now, with 12-second ETs and speeds just over the ton. It was runner-up to Hustler for the Super Eliminator. Ian Garbutt debuted the new High Fever 2 Topolino altered. Inspired by an American Topolino called Gangrene, he'd mounted the body further back with the wheels in the doors, unlike his previous Topolino, which followed the more traditional layout. It was powered by a Nowhead Buick. Ron Fisher was crewing on the car, and here we see him trying it out for size. The final meeting of 1967 was held on October the 22nd. Pete Atkins brought along the new slow motion altered. The 98-inch wheelbase chassis had a Jago body, Allen Herridge front axle with Anglia spindles, a Model Y radius arms, and a standard 10 steering box. Power came from a 289 Shelby Cobra engine, fitted to a 50 Cadillac gearbox and Olds rear axle. Inside was a Moon Racer gas pedal. Orange Crate was the new pop altered of Derek Benbow, powered by a 303 Olds, manual gearbox and Chevy rear axle. The standard front axle carried 100E wheels. Keith Blake was driving Hustler, now fitted with a second carb and one Super Eliminator with a 1285 at 109 miles an hour. Front suspension used a horizontally mounted Ford console coil spring. And this is the unusual front suspension on Reg Summers' MAB Slingshot, powered by a blown nitro burning straight 6 Zephyr motor. Having blown up the Dodge Hemi in Weekend Warrior, Alan Blount had now fitted a 283 Chevy, again with homemade injection, and he ran a best of 13.6 at 121 miles an hour to take top speed of the meeting. John Wolfe brought along his 427 Shelby Cobra and ran a best-of-3 match race against Clive Skilton's 327 Corvette. Clive had a 2-second handicap and won the matchup 2-1. This is Ron Alonso's 67 Mercury Cyclone GT. And from the roundy round circuits, the 7-litre NASCAR Fairlane of Martin Bourrain. Easter Monday 1968, and 10,500 eager spectators descended on a new-look Santa Pod raceway with the 7-second surface. Alan Blount had a new 144-inch chassis for Weekend Warrior. Brief bodywork was painted metallic red and white horizontal stripes, the in thing for 1968. Other racers using horizontal stripes included Nobby Hills, Alan Herridge and Jerry Cookson. Alan was using Edelbrook rocker covers for the first time, but without oil breathers. Oil went everywhere, as can be seen later in this video. Bill Haynes brought along his neatly made G-Class dragster called the Conqueror, powered by a 997 Anglia motor with a full race cam. Bill had built the car under less than ideal conditions in his garden shed. John Harrison appeared with Jinx, his Austin Healey-powered supercharged one-off injection fueler. This immaculately turned out car had a gold metal flake paint job, but at this meeting lived up to its name as the clutch and gearbox broke up in a big way. Nobby Hills and driver Mike Hutchison brought out Hound Dog with several interesting changes. The blower and injection had been modified over the winter, and protruding saucily through the bodywork was a gleaming chrome fuel tank with a conical rear end for efficient fuel flow. Poltergeist was the name for Walt Ethel's dragster, powered by a 283 Chevy, on top of which was a 671 blower, 2 4-barrel carbs and a neat scoop made from a motorcycle fuel tank. Geronimo was the new junior fueler of Jerry Fry, Mike Tickner, Roger Sturgis, John Sigary and Mike Burns. The 125-inch frame had a 49 Olds rocket motor opened out to 3 24 cubic inches. Later heads with bigger valves were fitted, as was Hilborn injection. Direct drive ran to an Olds axle, Halibrands and M&H slicks. An interesting aside is that Anglia spindles were used as hard currency rather than pound notes to acquire some of the stateside hardware, being in very short supply for the American dragster builders. Clive Skilton now had a half share in the Allard Chrysler car, which had not raced since Woodvale in 1965. Clive took top speed at the meeting at 163 miles an hour, which probably scared him a bit as he hit the brakes a bit hard, flexing the frame and grinding away the underside. Dennis Priddle and Rex Sluggett brought out Tudor Rose for the first time and ran a best of 9:40, 161 miles an hour. The Keith Black motor ran a Mooneyham blower and the latest Hilborn Bugcatcher injector. Frame was a copy of Roland Leon's Hawaiian 2. Halibrand rear wheels had Blue Streak slicks. Commuter ran top time of the meet, 9.05 seconds. Mark Stratton's Hustler 2 had a pair of 283 Chevys mounted in it. Driver was Colin Saunders. The Gold Rush Pop of Patton Christchurch was powered by a 289 Shelby copper engine. Bill Satterley was driving the original 427 Bill Thomas Dick Harrell Chevy 2 funny car called Mean Machine. In 1968, Ron Fisher got to borrow his dad's cine camera as Clive Skilton comes down the Far Up Road. The first couple of minutes of the film are damaged, hence the jumping, so do not adjust your set. Ken Cooper gets a push start in Bazooka 2. Stagecoach had a new paint job and a wild looking set of chrome exhausts. Hustler 2 had the same type of front core spring setup as Hustler. There goes Good Vibrations, the 61 Oldsmobile powered Anglia of John Dixon. Bill Satterley powers to a 12-second run. Hound Dog comes out for a race against Weekend Warrior, who, without oil breathers, blows out oil everywhere. Joe Kopp brings out his 57 Chevy against the Lotus Cortina of Peter Shelton. Gary Goggin makes some smoke with his GT 350 Mustang. This is the 4.7 litre Ford-powered McLaren sports car of Bob Rose. Geronimo gets some attention in the pits as they adjust the valves. Jerry Boughton makes a welcome return to drag racing in his 289 AC Cobra. Bill Satterley lifts the front as he powers to another 12-second blast down the quarter mile. Hustler 2 comes out for a run against Opus 1, which was now running Chevy power. Top fuel time as Skilton makes a run. Then it's Tony Dension's turn in Commuter. Rex Sluggett wheels out Tudor Rose. With 3 strong running top fuel cars, the race was now on to see who could be the first into the 8s. Hound Dog comes out again, now running regular 11-second ETs. The 1968 Drag Racing Championships were held over the August Bank Holiday weekend. Roy Phelps had his new Wheelie Stingray out for some practice wheel stands, running with an Olds rocket motor, later to be replaced by the 427 Chevy out of his old car. Brian Rigsall brings out his 331 Chrysler Hemi-Rail Taxi for a run against Mark Stratton's Hustler, now sponsored by John Wolfe and powered by a 427 L88 Chevy. The new car from Reuben Johnson and Colin Mullen was Invader, a flip-top steel Viva funny car with a 392 Hemi. High Fever 2 now had a Y-block Ford, replacing the now head Buick. George's Dragon was the 39 Austin Ruby of the GKB team with Mike Gillett driving. The 2.4 Jag had a Wade blower, 4 SUs and ran on alcohol. This car became Wild Honey in the 70s. Shutdown was the new 265 Chevy powered altered of Freddie Whittle, seen here driving in his T-shirt. The 427 Hustler shuts down Megalomania. Commuter and Tudor Rose were now running regular 8-second ETs. Commuter had got there first with an 8.89-second run at the Drag Racing and Hot Rod Trophy meet. Tick Tickner gets ready for a run in Geronimo. Ed Gurney's Buick Pop Roadster shuts down Slow Motion. The Limelight Jaguar Dragster of Tony Brown goes past the old Derek Metcalf Dragster, now run by Mike Cunningham and renamed Leprechaun. Gary Goggin in his Mustang again, who as we all know would be running his Clunk Click Camaro Pro Stocker in another 5 years. Joe Kopp beats the Leprechaun. And to finish off, 2 8-second races between Tudor Rose and Commuter. A slipping clutch prevented any smoke from Commuter, but Dennis made up for it with a final smoky run in Tudor Rose.